listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's Lectora Inspiration Wednesdays webinar. I'm Molly Horn, Content Evangelist for Lectora, and today we have two special guests with us from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention here to talk about creating Section 508 compliant courses. Now, before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that all attendees are muted to keep down any background noise and make it easier for all of you to hear the presentation. But if you have questions throughout, go ahead and ask them in the question section on your pane, and we'll get to them towards the end of the session. So let's get started. I'd like to introduce Rhonda Willis and Latasha Bankston here from the CDC. Welcome, ladies, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's get started. I'm Rhonda.
I'm Latasha.
And we're joining you this morning to give you a little information about doing some fun stuff in Lectora while keeping it Section 508 compliant, which is sometimes a challenge, but we like challenges here at the CDC. So we're going to get started right away because we have lots to share with you. And I'm going to share, hopefully all of you can see the screen fairly well. I do my presentations a little bit differently because this is a learning presentation, and so I do it in the AWT format. So I'm going to actually go through in the AWT format, and I cannot see my little, I wonder if I can get this down. Now I can see my little buttons. The little GoToWebinar was in my way. I teach in the AWT format simply because I want to be able to show you the Title Explorer a lot, because that way you can kind of see how we build things Section 508 compliant, and that's the most important part of this process. So let's get started. Today we're going to look at some sections of different courses that are branch. It's called the Educational Design and Accreditation branch here at the CDC has developed in Lectora. And if any of you on the webinar attended the Lectora Users Conference, some of this will look a little bit familiar if you attended my session there at the conference this past spring. But I shook it up just a little bit, so hopefully some of it may be slightly different. And then I have Latasha joining me. She is a web developer here in our branch, and so she's going to go over a little bit of some of the reasons why we do Section 508 compliancy, and then share with you some tools near the end of the session on how to test for 508 compliancy. So anyway, we're going to keep moving along here, and I'm going to let Latasha take over right here and talk a little bit about Section 508 compliance.
Okay. One of the reasons why it's important for us to make our courses Section 508 compliant is because it's really the law. All websites and documents within the federal government must be accessible to persons with disabilities according to Section 508 or the Rehabilitation Act. Also, any web development or e-learning development company that would like to contract with the federal government must be ready to meet federal accessibility standards. And if you need to know more about Section 508 compliance and accessibility, you can go to the Department of Health and Human Services webpage at hhs.gov. Here are some items to consider when developing for Section 508. It's important to provide appropriate alternative text for objects. Alt text usually goes on your images or any objects that can't be described just without using descriptive text. You should also use your links correctly and ensure linked information helps to explain content. One example was when you use click here, sometimes it's better to use a more descriptive type text on your links instead of click here. Also ensure the proper use of color. Stay away from the reds or any loud colors that may hurt people that may be colorblind. Avoid use of items that flicker or blink. Provide headers for tables and screens. Ensure users can complete and submit your forms, and use links to skip repetitive navigation. This helps users that rely on assistive technology to not have to read all of the navigational links every time that they're on your website. Also, create accessible multimedia elements. Make sure that your video and your audio are captioned appropriately and transcripts are available. There are some Lectora-specific items to consider as well. You should configure your screen reader order, configure the reading screen order. Use pop-ups and show hides correctly. Rhonda's going to go through and describe these different items to you in more detail after I'm finished. And also use your menu navigation and table of contents appropriately. So turn it back over to Rhonda.
Okay, so let's keep moving, and we're going to show you some ways to do these things appropriately and make your course a little bit more interactive. The thing about using Lectora, I got asked at the users conference, do you have to do these things to make your course section 508 compliant? What I'm getting ready to show you, and the answer is no. You can make a plain, boring page turner in Lectora, and it'll be 508 compliant, but that's not very exciting to the adult learner. So our challenge was we want to make sure that we reach out to our adult learners and make things more engaging and interactive for them to keep them going through their courses. So, and then those things, of course, have to be Section 508 compliant. And a lot of the things that we want to do when we're engaging our adult learners, you know, some of the things that we immediately think about is, you know, using video or using hotspots, using drag and drops, and all these neat things. Well, some of those things immediately can't be 508 compliant if you just want to drop them in there and keep moving on. There are some things that you have to do to make sure those things can be 508 compliant. So that's what we're going to go over today. So first I'm going to show you some things from a course called Making the Case for Advanced Care Planning, and this was released last year. And it is an external course, and show you right here. You can actually go to it. It's on the cdc.gov website. If you actually go to cdc.gov and use the search box for advanced care planning, you'll actually come to this web page, and you can actually take the course. It's a really nice course if you've got elderly parents that you need to think about doing advanced care planning for. So this is the course that we're going to go look through. This course has a couple of features that use actions and variables and are Section 508 compliant. We're going to look at some pop-up boxes that are not your standard little, I guess, web boxes, or, you know, little pop-up boxes. These are the ones that literally pop up on the page. And most people know how to do these, but there's a couple of things that you have to do to make sure that they are Section 508 compliant, that a screen reader can actually read them. So we're going to look at how you do that. And then we're also going to look at building a screen reader variable so that you can avoid conflicting audio. And this helps make any audio or video that you put in your course Section 508 compliant, so you can avoid that conflicting audio scenarios. So we'll look at that. But first, we have our little pop-ups, and they work just like this. If you have you know, a little button on your page and you want to pop up, that page pops up on the page. It looks really nice. But the only problem with that is most people take these elements, and I'm going to move over into the AWT format here so you can see the Title Explorer. If we click on one of these elements, you'll see I have it initially visible. Most people, when they do these elements, they're initially not visible. They don't select that box because you don't want it to show, of course, when it initially loads on the screen, because you don't want it seen. Well, a screen reader then won't see that. If it initially loads on the screen, or initially does not load on the screen, and a screen reader will never see that. Well, that's a problem, because if a screen reader doesn't see it when it initially loads, then it will never be read by the screen reader, and thus somebody who's using a screen reader will never get that information from that pop-up box. Even if you hit that Learn More button and the pop-up box appears, the screen reader won't read it. So how do we get around that? Well, it's pretty simple. You use some show hide features. So what we have to do is we make these features, this additional resources, little image, the text here that goes on top of it, and then there's a little close button that goes with it. All of these features are actually set as initially visible, but you'll notice here at the top that we on-show and we hide those immediately. So each of those features here have an on-show hide. So as soon as the screen is loading in your browser, they're initially visible for the screen reader to detect them, but then they're immediately hidden. If it's a slow browser, when it's loading on the screen, your user may see a momentary blip, but they're not going to see enough to notice what that is. Those with high-speed connections probably won't see anything. But it gets around the problem of that screen reader not being able to take that text. So then it works for us. The screen reader gets to see it, and it's initially then going to hide because of our on-show hide feature. And then it'll function just like we'll want it to. And then you'll also notice over here in the Title Explorer, we have it set to read in the proper reading order so that the screen reader then will read it to the screen reader user in the proper order. So over here we have, on this page, the screen reader is going to read header. It's going to read that content. It's going to read the Learn More button. Then it's going to notice that there's that GIF or that JPEG. Then it's going to notice that it's got that text and then the close button. So it's going to read it in the proper order, just how you would read it as a sighted viewer, except you're going to play with that Learn More button. Now there's also an alternative way that you can do that pop-up. I'm still in, hang on a minute. I was still in edit mode. And here we go, the alternative pop-up. The alternative way you can actually do this is to use a hide mode with a box that's the same color as your background. Now I did it so you can actually see it right here. You can see this box that's right here. If you have a background that's a solid color background that you're using in your course, you can create a box to hide your elements that's the same color as your background. And then your elements, and you'll notice right here, I'm going to click on them. Right here they are. They're actually behind that box, and you can keep them initially visible and then hide them behind their box. And then your Learn More button is only going to function as something that will, if we unclick our Learn More button, the Learn More button, all it does when the learner clicks on it is hide the purple box. So if we go into Run mode here, when they click on that Learn More, all it does is hide the purple box. So you can make a really fancy pop-up right behind that purple box, and when the learner clicks on the Learn More box, it hides the purple box or white box or whatever color box you have. Your pop-up appears. And then you can do the same thing with your Close button. Your Close button would function to show the purple box again. So it functions the same way, but all you're actually doing is hiding or showing that white, purple, whatever color box your background is. And so it does the same function. I like using that one myself if I have a solid color background. It makes it a lot easier. Okay, let's
My mother fell ill suddenly at the age of 57.
Oh, we have audio.
We rushed her to the emergency
no.
room where she was admitted for kidney failure.
Let me pause that. That was a concept of an example of conflicting audio. I wanted to talk, but my audio started. How did you solve that? Because that would have happened if the screen reader would have started. If the screen reader would have started reading the page, but the audio would have started, that would have been a problem. There's a way to get around that. Let's go back into our edit mode here. On the beginning of every course that I do that has audio or video, now it's on this page just so you can see it, but I usually have something like this at the very beginning of every course, and I have it set so you can actually view it, but a lot of times I'll actually hide it. I'll make the text the same color as the background, so a sighted viewer won't see this, but a screen reader would detect it, and so it'll be at the very beginning of the course, the screen reader would read it, and it would give the screen reader user the chance to say, oh, there's audio in this course. If I don't want it to conflict with my screen reader, I need to select this link. And what this link is going to do is it's going to change a variable. And let me show you. Here we go. We have a variable in here. It's called the 508 variable. And I have it initially set to 0. Okay? Pretty simple. When the screen reader user selects this audio control link, what it does, it modifies the 508 variable and it changes it to a 1. That's all it does. But that's very significant because if you'll notice over here, my audio control bar, which runs that audio on that page, has an action on it. And it's an on-show, play, the audio, on the condition that that 508 variable is equal to 0. So it'll only autoplay it if that 508 variable is set to 0. But then I have an else. Else, pause it. And that's important too, because you only want to pause it if that 508 variable has been tripped or changed to a 1. And then what that does is it allows the audio to stay on a pause mode. So if the screen reader user is going down through and listens to the whole entire page, and they notice at the bottom of the screen, because it's at the bottom of my reading order, their screen reader is going to eventually tell them there's an audio down here. It detects the audio bar because this is 508 compliant as well, and it will tell them that there's a it'll tell them that there's a play pause button there, and then they can actually select that with their keyboard, and then they could actually listen to the audio themselves because I've set it at pause. Now, if I did not set it at pause but had left it at a stop mode, it would not play for them. So you've got to make sure that you pause it for them because it will only play for them if it's in pause mode. So again, what we've done is we've done an on-show play on the condition that that 508 variable is equal to 0, else we've paused our audio. And you can do this the same with video and any other like multimedia feature that you don't want to conflict with your screen reader. Okay.
My mother fell ill suddenly at the age of...
Turn her off. Okay, we're going to move on to another course. It's called Salmonella in the Caribbean. And this course is getting ready to come out hopefully soon. I know it's in clearance right now. It's a redo for us. It was originally created in Authorware, but it's being redesigned in Lectora to meet some Section 508 compliance requirements. And they're doing some really cool interactive things with this course. So we're going to look at a couple of things that they're doing. They have some really neat image map menus with completion status. And again, you can build these really easily, but in case if you're not really careful, they won't be Section 508 compliant. So there's some show hide things that you have to do to make sure that they're going to be Section 508 compliant. And then we have some pop-up rollovers. Rollovers, those usually aren't Section 508 compliant, are they? Show you that. And then we have a customized question knowledge check here that I'm going to show you. We just kind of took an ordinary multiple choice and we jazzed it up a bit for some customized feedback, but we kept it 508 compliant, so I'll get to show you that as well. So let's move forward. Here is our image map, and it's pretty neat. You've got these little places on the map that you can follow the CRCT through each step of the case study investigation in the Salmonella in the Caribbean case study. And so it's going to work a little bit like this. When you click on your one, you'll notice that some things change. and you get this little pop-up with a link for them to go somewhere, and it gives them a time to complete this section. So we're going to go, and we're going to, you notice we actually skipped some pages. We didn't go through the content, and we didn't go through the knowledge check. So we failed. We got a 0. This course is set to, it actually calculates your score for your knowledge checks and gives you some customized feedback. But it also gives you a little completion status here, you notice, which is pretty cool. But all these are set by actions and variables. But what I wanted to show you is, I can't get to it. Okay, here we go. Now, if I go back to this page, you'll notice that my 1 is now grayed out. And it'll go through and it'll do that for the, I'm going to go through and do this. Number 2 is the same. There we go. So pretty neat. It gives them some feedback. It lets them know that they've completed the section. When they come back to the map, they know that they've done these because we've grayed them out. So how do we do that and keep it 5-weight compliant? Well, again, it's just those hide and show hides. They keep it section 5-weight compliant. So you'll notice over here, let's go over here into edit mode. Okay. And you'll see that we've got some steps that we hide. We've hidden our step 1, and we hide it on the condition that when the step is completed, it gets hidden. And here's the step 1 complete. And it'll show, well, what this is, step 1 completed, that's that gray one. So what it does is it hides that initial white one, and it'll show that gray one. And then in these steps, sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice. Hang on just one second. Goodness. The step 1 buttons, when you click on it, it does a lot of little things. It makes sure that all the other groups here stay hidden so they can't interact with the map. And then it'll also hide itself, because you'll notice that the white one is hidden and there's this little blue thing that shows up. So just a little way to, I guess, keep them, interested in, this is where I'm at. And then we also have, all these things are grouped together. And where is my, oh, here it is. You'll also notice up here we have we hide the groups. So when the page loads, these groups are initially visible, and that's how they stay 508 compliant. All of these groups are initially visible on load so that they can stay 508 compliant. The screen reader will notice them. But then up at the top, they're on show hide. They immediately hide them. And then they're only visible again when we click the step 1, and then they show the material. So that's how we keep it 508 compliant. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a little complicated, but it's a lot of show hides to keep things. You make sure everything's initially visible. That doesn't sound right. Initially visible. I like saying invisible. Initially visible, and then you do the show hides so that you make sure those things are hidden, and then the only time that it comes up is when you click on it, and then certain things will go away, certain things will come up to show the learner that that's where they're at, this is where they need to go, and then it'll go away when you go to the next page. Okay. Let's get through this because I want to show you the knowledge check. This one's really cool. It took a lot of building to do, but you'll notice if I click on any answer, I will get a, there's a little feedback right there, but sorry, B is not correct. E is the correct answer. Well, what that means is it's told me, look, I didn't get the answer right, but it notices that E is the correct answer. And it'll do it. If I go back, choose another answer. Sorry, C is not correct. E is the answer. So how do we do that? Well, it's your standard knowledge check question, but it has a lot of stuff built in on top of it. And most of it is based on, we have some hide boxes here. You'll notice they're a little funny colored because I actually just stole them straight from the course. So they're colored to be the same color as the background of the Salmonella course. But what they do is they actually hide the little circles so that you can actually have your little feedback buttons right here. And then we've also made sure that our alt text right here, so this is alt text for the little feedback buttons. Our feedback is A is incorrect, B is incorrect, C is incorrect, D is incorrect, and E is correct, so that we get correct feedback on there, correct alt tag feedback on those. But the crux of this is the submit button. The submit button does a whole lot, and you'll see that there are a lot of actions built into this submit button. And what it does, every time somebody hits submit for their answer, it'll automatically show that green bar that's right here for the correct answer. It'll show these boxes, so it always covers up those little circles. And then it does an answer. So what it does is on mouse click, it modifies a variable that we built in. It's called Q2 answered, and it says, yes, the question was answered. And then it'll say, show, depending on what you answered, A, B, C, or D, or E, on the condition that the question 2 variable contains A or B. So it depends on what you answered, but we built it in to whatever you answered. It's going to show, if you answered B, it's going to show that feedback for you. And then it's also going to send some feedback to a different variable called S1Q2 that we built in, and it's going to tell it what you answered. So if you answered A, it's going to send this S1Q2 the value A. So if you answered A, it'll send that A. If you answered B, it'll send it B, so forth and so on all the way down. If you didn't answer it, you skipped the question and you hit submit, it's going to tell me that you skipped it. And then finally, it's going to actually send you the pop-up window. Go to chapter, section, or page, the S1Q2 feedback window. That's the pop-up window that you saw. And if we go down here, we'll actually see that pop-up window, which is right here. Looks a little busy, doesn't it? But that's because it has all the text answers, the A, B, C, D, E feedback windows. But it also has a lot of variables here, and it's the show hide text for each of those. And they're built to where they're all initially visible, all the A, B, C, D, E's, and then they automatically hide them. We've got all the actions that hide each of those. And then it'll say on show the correct one if, so like if you answered A, it'll tell you to show A. If you answered A, it's going to show A. If you answered B, it's going to show B. So hopefully that makes sense. It's pretty complicated and it took a while to get it to work, but it does work. Okay. Let's get back up. We're doing pretty good on time. And I want to show you doing better on time than I thought we would. I want to show you the rollover. We have a rollover, but most of us know rollovers aren't 508 compliant. So how do we do this? It's actually pretty simple, and most of you could probably guess it. What we did is we have an invisible button that's built over the text. And if I remove that invisible button, you'll notice that the text actually has a text link in it. So for the screen reader, the screen reader is going to actually read the hyperlink text, go to chapter, section, or page, and it's going to get its own pop-up link. So for a screen reader, let's get it in run mode. Screen reader will get this. So screen reader user will get the proper pop-up window text that's 508 compliant. They'll get the same information, and it stays 508 compliant. For, see if I can find my invisible button. There it is. Put it back over here. For the sighted user, we've created an invisible button, made it transparent, of course, and then we also did an empty alt tag so that it would not confuse the screen reader. It will not be seen by the screen reader. And then what it does is it has no on-click. Doesn't have any function for an on-click. So then we just did a rollover feature on it. On mouse enter, show a text box, and then on mouse exit, show text box. And what we could do, which it hasn't actually been done here, but to make sure the screen reader would not actually see this text box, we could render the text as an image we published and then use an empty alt tag as well. So then this text box would actually not be seen by the screen reader either. And so then you wouldn't have a double reading of the definition box by the screen reader, and that way they won't have to see it twice. In fact, I think that's probably the better way to do it. So then you have a rollover built in for the sighted user, and you have the proper hyperlink text built in for your screen reader user. So just something fun built in for interactivity. All right. Well, I went a little bit faster than I thought I would. So let's go, or really actually I have the summary. What I really wanted to let you guys know is that when it comes to 508 compliancy, is you don't allow regulations to squelch your creativity. And what I want to encourage you is that you learn the advanced features of your Lectora, because the more you know about actions and variables and how to use them, the more you can do with your Lectora, and the more you can figure out how to make things engaging, interactive, and you can create things that are, when you have some challenges like Section 508, you can figure out how to meet those when it comes to using your Lectora advanced features. There are a lot of great things at Lectora University, so I encourage you to go there. I'm going to let Latasha go over some things for Section 508 compliance, and then we're going to open it up. If there's any questions, I'll take a look at those, and maybe I can answer some questions and fill up a little bit more time. So I'll let Latasha take over.
Okay. Remember to learn what Section 508 compliance is and what accessibility are and what they mean. And you can use the Section 508.gov website and also the HHS.gov website to actually learn what Section 508 and accessibility are. Also, after you have created your products, test them out for Section 508 compliance. Some tools that you can use are JAWS. It's a popular screen reader, but it's expensive. There's also a free trial download, but it's limited to a certain amount of minutes, and then after you run out of those minutes, you'll have to reboot your machine, but you can restart the tool.
And you can do that several times, right?
Right. You can do it as many times as you want. There's also the Ramp Web Section 508 toolbar. And the purpose of this toolbar is to provide a tool that can assist you in the manual process for checking for federal Section 508 compliance of websites and applications. There's also the WAVE accessibility evaluation tool, the Web Accessibility Evaluation Toolbar. You can download this also in Firefox, and it provides button options and menus that will modify the current web page to reveal underlying accessibility information. It can show you different things and highlight them in red, yellow, and green so that you can see which areas you need to focus on to make your pages or sites more compliant. Peak, it can help authors determine whether animations or videos in their content are likely to cause seizures. That's important for people who may have epilepsy. There's also a color blindness check, and it's a tool that recolorizes any web page in a palette that closely resembles a typical palette for a person that has red-green color vision deficiencies. There's a complete list of web accessibility evaluation tools that you can find on the Web Accessibility Initiative, the WAI website. So don't be afraid to try new methods and test them out, and just be creative and figure out how to make your products compliant.
Absolutely. So it took us a while to figure it out, but we didn't give up, so we encourage you not to give up either. Okay, let's take a look and see if there's any questions that have been put in here. I can see one, but I can't get to it. Let's see. Can you share your Lectora file with us? I am sure we can. I think Molly is, this is going to be archived, right, Molly?
Yes, we'll get it up on the site next week.
Okay. And is there a way that we can actually share the AWT with them if necessary so they can actually get the show hides from us?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can, excuse me, send that out probably next week as well.
Okay. So if I just get it to you, then we can share it?
Yep.
Okay. That would be great. Okay. For some reason, my little question thing is like really squished, and I cannot see these very well. Let's see if I can. There it goes. Okay. Here we go. Is AWT the Lectora standard? Well, the AWT file is the standard file that's built. The AWT is, well, the Lectora creates an AWT file, and then you publish to HTML or, well, with Lectora 11, you'll be able to publish to Tin Can API. So, or you can publish to SCORM. Let's see. Will a copy of the slides be available? Yes, they're going to be archived. how can I make an object actually not appear in edit mode so I can see several objects or the actual object? Okay, if you want to see objects appear or not appear in the edit mode, if you go to File, Preferences, and then there's a thing right here, it's called Show Visibility Boxes. Right there it is. So you've got your toggle boxes right here. That way you can hide show things on your edit screen. Okay? Good information. You have any documentation or a guide with this information that we can download? Actually, we have a couple of courses that go into a lot more information on 508 accessibility, and they're out on CDC Train. So if you go to CDC Train, cdc.train.org, and you do a search for 508 courses, you'll see a couple of our 508 accessibility guide courses, and there's actually one of my Lectora courses, Lectora user conference courses we turned into a course, and it's actually out on CDC Train as well. So there's a lot of really good information out there. So if you go to cdc.train.org and look for 508, you'll see a couple of things out there from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention out there. Let's see. When you use a hide box, does Lectora have the ability to clone the section of the background so the purple box is not so obvious? Actually, yeah. What you can do, well, let's see. I'll just build one right on this page. If I just build a text box right here, and you go to your background color and then hit select, you can hit that select and then apply, and then your background is going to be, your box will be the same color as background. The only problem is with this background, it's a variant of purples, so it's not going to look exactly the same. If you had a solid color background, then it would blend perfectly. And free or inexpensive screen readers we can use to test our courses. Latasha should have answered that for you. They're right here. Some of the free ones, the Wave toolbar is free. I think the Ramp web section 508 toolbar is free. But if you go to this complete list of, let's see if I can pop it up, the complete list of web accessibility, it's not going to pop up for me. My links kept messing up on this page. But if you go to the Web Accessibility Initiative, if you just Google Web Accessibility Initiative, you should be able to find a complete list of web accessibility evaluation tools. They have a whole entire page, and it has all of these on there plus more, and several of them are free. The Wave toolbar is great. Will this be recorded? Yes, it's being recorded and will be archived. Why not have the pause as the default for audio and video and select play options in the property box? Seems to be more complicated than it should be. Well, that's true. You could always have your audio always be paused, but a lot of people like the audio to autoplay for sighted folks, so it just automatically goes. You can always have your audio just to be always paused, but a lot of times if it's paused, even sighted users will choose not to listen to the audio. They'll just skip it. So a lot of it depends on your users. If you think your audience is going to always listen to the audio that's on the screen, that you think they're going to select it and they're going to listen to it, then you could just go ahead and make sure that audio is just paused throughout the course, and it wouldn't autoplay. But if you think that you have an audience that would have tendencies to skip things, they go through the course really quickly and they're going to skip things, and you would rather have it autoplay, then this is what you would need to do to avoid the conflicting audio scenario. So really it just depends on your audience or your personal preference. can you demonstrate how the reader reads this page? If you mean like a screen reader, we can take a page like this. A screen reader would read it like this. It reads it over here in the Title Explorer. A screen reader always reads Lectora files on a page from top down. So it would read this first, that, your next button, and your back button, the way I have it set up on this page. There are some things that do affect your screen reader order, and it's if you have things set always on top. And it also reads things from the title first. So if you have things like up here, title first, these would actually be read on the page first. Your chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4 text, so how it works, summary, and table of contents would technically be read on every page first, which you would want to make sure you had skip navigation if you didn't want those read on your page first every single time. That's where you would use some skip navigation, which we haven't built into this particular presentation. Then it would read if you had something built into your chapter, so like the title, how it works, that would be read next. And then it would read things on your page. So then the next text box, next back. So that's how it would start reading things. So it always reads anything from the title, and then the chapter level, and then the page level. But just remember that things that are set as always on top will actually alter that order, because anything set as always on top will read first no matter what. So I don't like setting things as always on top unless I absolutely have to, because it will mess up my reading order. So hopefully that makes sense. If you actually go to cdc.training.org and take those accessibility courses that I have in there, it explains it more thoroughly in those courses. What does the screen reader see and what does it not see, and how can you manage that? A screen reader sees mostly text boxes, or text and images, audio and video, if they're set properly. And it will only see things that initially load on a screen. So in the web browser, every time you open a page in a web browser and it initially loads the page, whatever is initially loading on a page, that's what a screen reader will detect, and then that's what it will read on the page, which is key in how we have to design and build pages. But it will detect pretty much everything that's on, say, this particular page that we're viewing. It's going to detect pretty much every element that's here, any text boxes, any of these graphic elements, unless I set them to say use empty alt tag. If I set them to say use empty alt tag, the screen reader will actually skip over that. The only thing it won't detect on this page is this background image, the one with the lightning bolt, because it's set as a background image. Anything that's set as a background image in Lectora, which means it, up here at the title page, or at the title, it was put in as a background image, it's set as an empty alt tag. So that is actually not detected either. This image, it's detected, so you always want to make sure that you have a decent name. Like, actually, this one really doesn't have a great name. I would want to change that if I were to publish this to the web. I would want to change that name to something a little bit more descriptive. But it'll read almost anything that you put in here, that's text-based, image-based, video or audio-based. The big key, especially with your video and audio, is that your players are accessible. Lectora does a great job of having players that are built in that are accessible players. The screen readers do detect the audio and video players that are in Lectora. So that's another key thing that you have to look for. Okay. Are you using text boxes with hyperlinks for your 508 compliant buttons? Any buttons that we have in here, the button maker that's actually in Lectora is 508 compliant. So if you use the button maker, you know, like the tools, button wizard, any buttons that come out of here for in Lectora, those are 508 compliant. The screen reader does detect those. So that's a great feature. And then any other, and if you use the, like add a button here and you pull in your own images, those are 508 compliant as well. Otherwise, you will need to make sure that you're doing using the hyperlink feature up here, because otherwise a screen reader would not detect. Like if I wanted to take this image and add an action, so if I did this and I added an action and I said on mouse click, go to web address, and I put a hyperlink somewhere, that would not be 508 compliant. That is not, a screen reader would never detect that because it's not made to be a functional link that a screen reader would detect. So you can't expect a screen reader to detect something like that. If you wanted to do that, you know, for your sighted users, that would be great. But at the same time, you would actually need to layer underneath, either hide underneath or put down at the bottom, you know, as a caption, an actual hyperlink for the link for a screen reader, because it will need a text hyperlink or an actual button hyperlink for the screen reader to detect it. Let's see. Did you use the multiple question feature, then cover up each of the boxers? Yes, it was a normal multiple choice question that we used in the Salmonella, and then covered up boxes. So it was just jazzed up. Do you let users have audio control anytime there's audio playing? Absolutely. So that audio bar, we always have the audio bar there available. So like like you saw me, I was able to stop and start that audio anytime I wanted to. And that's why we also have, when I did the pause feature, it also allows the screen reader then to have control of that bar, because if I set it to pause, the screen reader user, when the screen reader detects the audio bar, then they have full control of that bar as well, because they can keyboard through that bar and then play pause and stop, because I set it in a pause mode. Sometimes have issues with IE8 changing font size and text boxes. That, I'm not sure how to answer that one. That one you may need to contact Lectora support with that one. I'm not sure. Do we have IE8? We don't have IE8. Do we have IE8? Because I don't know if I've had that problem yet or not. I don't think I've had that problem. You might need to contact support on that one. Is there a way to use text scroll bars on the screen? Actually, I do believe there is. If you have a text box here, you can click this box right here, and it should say Show Vertical Scroll Bar, and then you have your text in there, and then when you, well, I should put text in there first, shouldn't I? Let's see. There we go. Well, of course, it's going to hide because we don't have it layered correctly. If I can move it up here where you can actually see it. There it is. So you have a scroll bar there. So if you had a lot of text and you needed to put on there, you could do a scroll bar. And it's actually 508 compliant as well. Is there a way to trigger the screen reader to read everything on the page from the start? Yes, there is. Screen readers should automatically start reading from top to bottom. But if it's not, there are some JAWS controls, and I think it's insert. Oh, you're going to make me think. Insert arrow, the insert up arrow, and then, ooh, I might have to think about that one. There's a couple of keyboard controls, and you can actually look them up on the JAWS website too. If you go to freedomscientific.com and then look up JAWS keyboard controls, there's a way to make sure the screen reader goes back to the top of the page, and then you can tell it to read all by keyboard controls. But there are keyboard controls that will tell it to do that. Other 508 compliant templates you can share. Goodness, that's a good question. Actually, there might be a 508 template in one of those courses that's out on cdc.train.org. If I'm not mistaken, we may have put a template out there. If not, I know I shared with our government rep over at Lectora. I gave him some stripped out templates that are going to be placed in the new Lectora 11, I think, that's coming out. So there may be some 508 templates that are going to be put in the new Lectora 11. So you'll have to check and see. How do you handle pre and post test tracking? Oh, that's a good question for another webinar. That's too much information to process, and I think we've got like 2 minutes left. Let's see. And I think I'm about to run out of time for a question. Salmonella in the Caribbean is going to be available to the web on the public. Yes, it will be. It'll probably be out in the next month or so. Doesn't have an alt tag on the answer button to give it away. Well, no, because that's the feedback. So they've already answered the question. Table of contents in 508. Table of contents, the best table of contents to use is the one, the tree version, and don't use the icons. I'm trying to think of which one. I don't have it in front of me here. It is, where's the table of contents thing up here? Add table of contents, tree view, no, indented list. You'll need to use indented list, and you can use icons, but it really throws the screen reader off, so I try not to use the icons. It makes for an ugly table of contents, but it's better. The screen reader will be able to use the indented list. It is actually harder for a screen reader to use this table of contents. If you really want a screen reader compatible table of contents, it's best to actually build one yourself with hyperlinks to each individual page. It's a pain in the tail to do it, but it's fully 508 compliant. Question types that you cannot use: drag and drop, and I think the rest of them are pretty much 508 compliant. They're just harder to, of course, essays you can't grade. Short answer, you can't necessarily, well, you can grade, but drag and drop's the big one. You can't you can't just make that one 508 compliant at all. And are we out of time, Molly?
Yeah, I think we need to wrap it up. I'm sorry, all of you. Eager with many questions, but I think we do need to close it out. So if you want to wrap it up, and we'll have to call it a day. But we've heard some feedback about more 508 compliant sessions, and I will be sure to make sure we get more in the future.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks, Rhonda and Latasha. It's been a great session.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely, and we will see you all later.
All right.